Alright, this is my second video about cellular respiration. In this video, we're going to talk about part 1 of cellular respiration, which is going to be glycolysis. And as you know by now, I really like splitting larger words into smaller words. In glycolysis, we see glyco, which reminds us of glucose, or even glycogen, but especially when referring to cellular respiration, we're talking about glucose. And then lysis, which refers to that word lyse, which means to break. And so literally, glycolysis is where we will be breaking glucose. And so glycolysis is the process by which glucose is broken into 2-pyruvate molecules. Okay? So we're not going to get very in-depth into this. So let's just look here. So I'm saying we're going to start with glucose, which, as we know, is a 6-carbon molecule. So I'm going to draw 6 carbons, if you can sort of imagine that. Okay? In glucose, they're not in a linear form, but it's just nice visually to be able to count 6 carbons. Okay? I'll just put 6C here. So you'll take one molecule of glucose and you will turn it into 2 molecules of pyruvate, each of which have 3 carbons. So notice that the total on the left side of our carbons is 6 carbons, and the total on our right side is 6 carbons. So we actually haven't lost any carbons. We've merely broken glucose from a 6-carbon molecule into 2 3-carbon molecules. Now, glucose or glycolysis cannot start on its own, okay? Glycolysis needs some help getting started, and so we, at the beginning of glycolysis, you have to use 2 ATP, take the energy from that, and they, when used, turn into 2 ADP. So notice the direction of the arrow. I start at the ATP, move to ADP, which means I used that ATP. So I used 2 ATP, but I end up getting out 4 ATP. So I used 4 ADP. Okay, so I gain 4 ATP, even though I used 2. I also gain, let me put it this way, I gain something called NADH, which came from NAD+. Now, NADH and NAD+, it's an electron carrier. And I like to think of this as a pizza delivery person, okay? The pizza delivery person takes the pizza from the pizza place and carries it to your house where they drop it off. They then go back empty-handed to the pizza place, go get another pizza, they drop it off somewhere else, okay? Similarly, NADH, we'll just talk about it in the NADH form. NADH is an electron carrier. All it's useful for, all it does is it carries high energy electrons. It doesn't use them at all. It's just carrying those electrons from one place to the other because those electrons cannot be just left to float wherever they want to on their own. Okay? So NADH is the form where it doesn't have electrons, then it gains electrons as well as a hydrogen and becomes NADH. And so I just want to count the ATP here. We used 2 ATP at the beginning, but we gained 4 ATP. And so our total after glycolysis is a net gain of 2 ATP. And again, I just want to remind everybody that glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm.